So Chris, let's just get right into it. Orion Township is the safest city with a population over 25,000 in Michigan. What have you done to help achieve that kind of ranking?
Robert, thank you. And first, thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm a fan. Listened to the first episode on my way to Nashville a few weeks ago, and we'll talk about that hopefully soon. But I've been in my role as Township Supervisor for 13 years here, and our community is about 40,000. For those people not familiar with Orion, we're about 30 miles north of the city of Detroit. And in Michigan, we have townships and cities, very similar. Cities have mayors, townships have supervisors, just to kind of lay the groundwork for folks listening to understand how what I do in my day job. So I'm sort of like the mayor, and I also get to oversee the day-to-day operations of all the departments of the township, including police. And so, that's something we're really proud of here in our community, is safety. To me, my job as the township supervisor is to protect and grow people's investment, and that's either their business or their home. And certainly the number one factor in any community and anywhere in America is public safety. Safety. If a community is not safe, the schools decline, property values decline, and vice versa. So that's been our high focus, and it's sort of the motto we live by. And so we have, for the last 6 years, been either number one or number two in the entire state of Michigan, over 1,700 communities.
That's a lot of communities. I saw the 19th safest of all communities.
Yeah.
But then
if you look at that, and so that's why we say the safest of 25,000 or more is that a lot of those are little small, villages of a couple hundred people, and
that makes sense.
So and it's something we're really proud of, and I think one of the other ways we've been able to do that is our residents support our police very actively through the millages, the way we fund our police department, and it allows our police to be more of a proactive policing mindset instead of reactive. Many communities, unfortunately, and mostly due to finances or lack of funding, are only able to run to the 911 calls as they come in, and sometimes they can't even keep up. That's why you hear some of these big cities, the response time, 20, 30 minutes. In our case, the reaction, we have districts that they're constantly in, and they're not just there to write tickets. They're there to go to the elementary schools and be seen by the students, and be at the community events and seen. We do ribbon cuttings. They show up, and they're part of the fabric of our community. So when they do have to do the hard parts of their job, people know them as well. But it's been really a successful sort of approach for us, and we've been blessed to be able to do it. Not every community can do that.
Yeah, I know offline, you and I were talking about the customer, and you said a little bit right there is that the population, everybody in your city is your customer.
Yeah.
Can you give me a little bit of background on how you flipped the script?
Yeah, so it's funny. I talk to the fourth grade students every year. It's part of their regular programming to have a local government section of government class, and I usually get to go to visit them. And that's my favorite question, and I say, who do you think my boss is? I tell them a little bit about my job. I get to work with the police and the fire and the parks and the water department. And they always say the president and the governor, and Congress. And then I say, the clue is I have 40,000 of them. And then they usually figure it out. But that's the challenge. I mean, our community, we have 40,000 residents. Each one of them is my constituent. They're my boss. They pay me. And so it's my job to do the best I can and provide the best customer service for them. So there's a couple things there to your question. Unfortunately, in 2025, heading into 2026, trust in government is at an all-time low in our lifetimes. And that's a fact. I mean, Harvard just came out with a study a couple weeks ago I read. The closer you get to the people, the more trust there is. But federal government almost, people don't trust the federal government in general. State government follows suit. Local government is similar. A little bit more trust as you get closer to the people because sometimes they know you. But that's the challenge we have. And people don't, knowing that that's the world I work in, how do I provide great service? Well, to me, it's listening. And we do a lot of that.
When you talk about that, the connection to people don't vote at the local levels as much as they do at the larger levels. My son and I were driving from California to Colorado last weekend, and we actually were talking about how do we improve the voting system? We were trying to come up with ideas as how do you educate people? You talk about it, you're educating people in the fourth grade. But I can tell you, a kid that's from 18 years old, they don't necessarily know how to, how to vote or why they're voting. The civics test, they say, when did the Northwest Territory become part of the United States? Has no relevance to what we're talking about, but education seems to be the strongest suit to help people, vote the right way. What do you guys do in the community to educate them to what you're doing and how you're doing it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a challenge we all face, and we try to find creative solutions to that. One of the things we do is we're really out there. I mean, and even though I'm really out there, we're out there with our communications plan, our strategy, and through the social media platforms. We have a quarterly magazine. That's one of the things when I first knocked doors in 2012, when I was running for this job, one of the things I heard over and over was, we don't get a clear communication from our local government. So I said, well, what if we had a real high quality magazine that we did with all the community partners, the schools and the downtown, the library. And we did that, and we did it with excellence. We've won national awards, and we are very strategic about our plan to communicate. I see that as the Achilles heel of many people in my position. They think they know what's best, and they operate in a bubble, and that doesn't work good for them. So that's the challenge that we have in this role, is to realize, and it takes a lot of humility, frankly, that sometimes you have to make decisions that might even be a little bit off of what I might decide if it was just my decision, but I take the input of my bosses and put that all together to come up with the right.
Give me an idea of a decision that you have to make, because not all decisions are popular. And so what type of decision have you made that maybe the community doesn't understand that is in their best interest for safety? How do you balance freedom and safety?
Yeah. I think the thing we get the most scrutiny about is when we approve developments that come to town, and the process we're required to follow. And I am a big rule follower. I think that's important. That's when people in my role get in trouble, when you create your own set of rules. But the residents, I think taking the time to explain, and I say customer all the time instead of resident, to our customers why we do the things we do and why we make the decisions we make. There's lots of folks that think our community is exactly perfect the way it is today or the way it was 15 years ago. We don't need anything else. But, there's this little thing called personal property rights. And so that's the challenge that we have in our role sometimes, is to balance that. And I would say the things that people get the most upset about are when we are approving these new projects, this new growth in our community, that not everyone understands the value of these new developments coming to town, and or thinks we don't have the infrastructure capacity. And that's where the level of trust comes in. And if you have built that, capital that you have built up over the years, and built that trust up with the residents and with your customers, it makes it a lot easier when you have to make those decisions.
Yeah. Obviously, my brother's a building official here, and we talk about business and decision making all the time. And he's one of the things he's done as a building official is he's flipped the script, just like you say. And I'm sure it's a top down it comes from the top. You guys set this standard, because he goes out in the field, and when he inspects a house, he's inspecting it as they're the customer, and he's helping them get through the process rather than walking in and say, hey, that plug's out of line, and then they walk out. Rather, he tells me, he goes in and he explains them what you need to do it right.
Yeah.
And again, this leads to safety. So it's a mentality that you've built within your community and in your people.
It's a mentality, and it's a trust, and that builds trust also. But I'll tell you, it's all about, I'm big on mission and vision. Where are we headed? And we have one. And simply put, and there's 5 different values that set it up, but we exist to exceed our residents' expectation for how local government should serve them. We exist to give our customers the white glove treatment. And you just gave a perfect example. A lot of residents have no idea who I am. They might know who some of our police folks are and our fire chief. They might not know who Dave Goodlow is, your brother, our building official. And that's the feeling they get, because that's sort of what's been ingrained in our heads growing up and through the system. Government doesn't always look out for you. And when that building official comes into your house, he's looking to find any reason to give you that red tag, not the green one. Well, that's not how we roll in Orion Township. And that's, I agree, it has to be top down. I preach this literally every week to our team. Matter of fact, we had an all-staff meeting just yesterday, and I told a story. The night before, I stopped into Lowe's to pick up something. And as I walked in, a gentleman said, "Welcome to Lowe's," just like this, with a big old smile. And I was in a bad mood. I had the worst day. I was running late to see my grandma. I had to get in and out. I was cranky as heck. and he completely changed my demeanor. I literally smiled. His name was Bob. I said, "Thank you, Bob. How are you?" And as I'm walking around the store, I was literally chuckling to myself, like, that guy just changed my trajectory. I tried to go find him to take a selfie so I could show my whole team, hey, we need to be more like Bob, and I couldn't find him. He probably was on break. But that's the mentality. I think there is, unfortunately, in 2025, this overall distrust of the government, whatever level, and they're not necessarily going to help me, and they're always trying to put their thumb on me. And we want to be the opposite. We want to be seen as, no, we are your advocate, we are your helper, we are your supporter, and if we do a good enough job, that will trickle through our whole organization.
So you give me a lot of information about you, the city, how the city's done. But one of the things is, as a leader, I know I get to talk to my brother about you, and you're very inspirational, and your team follows you. Tell me a little bit more about you. I want to know. I know. When I first did the podcast, I heard that you want to start your own podcast. So I said, hardest part about starting a podcast is just doing it. So you get out there and just do it. And I know that a couple weeks ago you drove down to Tennessee to welcome in a grandson.
Yes.
And so I want to know more about you and how you set up yourself.
Yeah.
So how does that translate to the job? Because right now you're not acting. You're acting like a mayor. You're giving me all of the things that.
Let's get into it.
Yeah,
All
no,
right,
because
under the hood.
Get it. Let's get under the hood. Let's talk about you and your values.
Okay.
And how did you've got 3 daughters, all very successful. How did you bring them up to be successful girls? What didn't you compromise on? Let's hear about you, because I think that all of this stuff that you're talking about it's a reflection of what you've done growing up.
So thank you, and thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, I think, and I love giving credit. I am a words of affirmation guy, and I like to receive them. But that means also I like to give them, and I love to give the credit to my team. And I don't. It is a little awkward sometimes to talk about yourself, but I'm humble and honored to do that, because I think I want to give the credit to, first and foremost, the people that raised me. I grew up in a household. My dad was a fireman, and my mom was a teacher, and so we just sort of grew up in a house, the 4 of us, that we serve other people. That's what we sort of how we were wired. And yes, I have said I'm going to start a podcast. So now that we're on the record on aware, prepared, and willing, right? Now I have to do it, and I'm going to. But I think I've learned so much from other people. I want to give credit to the people I've learned from, including my 3 daughters. I joke that I'm 13 years into this job and I still don't really know what I'm doing. That said, I've had the amazing honor of being elected to these national boards, and I've won the highest recognitions, and it sounds even weird saying about myself that a person could win in my role in the state of Michigan from the 3 organizations that matter. I've won their highest award. I don't know if anybody else has. So that's cool, because that's recognition from my peers. But I really think that what has helped me find success is surrounding myself with just the best people and stealing their ideas.
I agree with you 100%. I do that, reading and listening and adding new value. The last podcast I did was on the growth mindset, Carol Dweck's book. And if you know you're not always at where you want to get to, you do not have a fixed mindset. That's for sure, especially when you surround yourself with people that know more than you. The other thing I notice is the family foundation. I know the family foundation, the Aware, Prepared, Willing podcast. We do this for parents that are sending their kids from high school to college. And we talk about these values. We've talked about the victim mindset, the growth mindset, and how to raise kids. But it really sounds like your base came from a strong family value at home first.
Yeah, we were rooted in family and rooted in God. And that's how we were raised. And we didn't have much. And but we were really great, learned to be grateful for what we had. And that's never left me and hopefully my daughters. And yeah, I have 3 daughters. They all live in Nashville, which is hard for me now because my grandson, Cole, is also in Nashville. I'm not happy about that. But yeah, so when you're raised that way, when you're raised by 2 parents that literally their entire lives are about serving others, it sort of becomes second nature. And I learned quickly that's not always normal, unfortunately. And so ex-wife and I did our best to instill those values in our 3 daughters. And now I'll have a grandson to do the same with as well. But to me, I can't give enough credit to the people that I have learned from. And starting first, with my mom and dad, but my friend who's the mayor of Columbus, Ohio, we don't hate their football team, but I like I like a lot of their ideas. And, he said, in the education space, they call it plagiarism. In local government and government, we call it best practices. And then really the rest of life, it's best practices. What you do training others is you have the experts pass on what they know. And unfortunately, I think in society, we've gotten away from that so much. And you see it in today's kids. You see it, hopefully not in my grandson.
Right. Well, so yeah, let's, now talking about that, now you've got another generation that you're leading. Now you've been in this community for 13 years leading it. And when my son and I were talking about Ralph Waldo Emerson and in one of his essays, and he was talking about self-responsibility and reliance. And we were also listening. He also talks about how inheritance can lead to a decay in society. And what he kind of means is that as you grow in society and you get stuff without learning how to do it or doing it, you end up missing out, and you lose those values, you lose those learnings, and going forward. So now you've got a third generation coming up. You've been here for 13 years. As you keep going, what are your systems in place for that next generation to come keep the mission of Orion Township going?
Listen, I mean, on the family side and just in general, and I'll relate it back to my day job. I believe in having winners and losers. I think that, and I might get in trouble for some of this, but I'm okay on your podcast. But this era of everyone wins and participation trophies is harming this generation, our next generation. And I think it's okay for kids to understand the importance of working hard and winning, and the importance of working hard and losing and learning from losing. And I'm not just talking about sports, I'm talking about life. I don't think we've done any favors by the wussification. And I just made that word up. But I listened to your first podcast on my way to Nashville. My daughter was in labor. I was so excited. I'm going to be a new grandpa for the first time. And I'm not blowing smoke. But when I got to their home and we were just getting ready to head to the hospital, I said, I just listened to this podcast, and I just, we didn't know if it was going to be a boy or girl. It's Cole now, and he's healthy. But I said, whatever you have, you got to say it's a vagina and a penis, not a private part, because.
Thanks, Steve, for that. That was a great comment in the first podcast.
But it's, to me, that's that. And you could put that, into any situation, but beating around the bush, softening things is not, I don't see that as helping anyone these days. I think it's only harming our young people and our adults too. I think you have to win. I think you have to lose. And I think that's how you and I learn lots of life lessons.
I've learned 99% of the lessons that you learn are from failure.
Yeah.
We don't let anybody fail anymore. When you come to do your first jiu-jitsu class, you're going to learn to fail a lot. The people that grow the fastest in jiu-jitsu by far are the ones that try things and fail. If you don't fail, I talked about on one of my last podcasts is that I've got a friend who came in and did one class, and he said, "I'm not any good at this. I'm not going to go anymore." It was a fixed mindset. He's all, "You're in anything you do, you're not good out of the gate." Right. This is our fourth, fifth podcast. I'm learning every day. I get critiqued every day. I got to slow down. I've got to pause a little bit. I've got great mentors helping me do this, but really it's because I want to get this message out. And, I'm very fortunate that my brother gets to work with you, and I hear all these great stories about you. And I'm really grateful you listen to that podcast, because this is what we're trying to do, is help people.
It's really important. And I think I don't take my role for granted. And I'll tell you, like I mentioned, everything. If I don't understand how people can be in my role and not have a clear mission and vision that they're marching to every day. And I told you ours is to provide the best service in local government. We give you the white glove treatment. We are your advocate. We are your ally, not your enemy. And so every day when I answer every phone call, when I get an angry resident, I have to see through that lens. I'll give your brother great kudos. And a unique thing, I talk about one of my favorite business books is Good to Great by Jim Collins. He talks a lot about having the importance of having the right people in the right seat on the bus. And then some people are on the wrong bus. You need to help them find the right bus, i.e. help them out of your organization. And then also just about another principle that I love that he talks about in the book is just the different levels of leadership. And a level 5 leader is the highest level of leadership. In a level 5 leader scenario, you don't know who the leader is always because they've done such a great job empowering their team. Now, I am not in any way, shape, or form near that level of leadership, but I espouse to be that. I learn from others that are. And in my day job as the Township Supervisor and working with your brother, for example, is a perfect example. When we did interviews, building the right members of your team, I'll say this a couple times, is the most important thing you can do in your organization. Hiring the right people for your team is the most important thing you can do because we all understand the concept of cancer. Unfortunately, we all have lost loved ones to cancer, both of my parents, unfortunately, way too soon. Having the wrong person in your organization in the wrong role is a form of cancer, and I have experienced it, and we all have. So your brother, for example, I interviewed, and I did not find someone that really met our mission and vision. Is this person going to provide the best service in local government, give the white glove treatment, or are they going to show up with a punitive mindset and hand out red stickers because they have authority? And everyone I interviewed had that mindset. I could just tell until I met Dave Goodlow. The only problem with Dave Goodlow was he was not qualified to be a building official in the state of Michigan while he was interviewing to be a building official in the state of Michigan. So the great news is we were able to, through another neighboring community, meet the requirements and have him sort of work as an understudy until he did meet those requirements. My board, my city council, if you will, trusted me to say, hey, this is the right guy. We're bringing him in. And what's happened, I get raving compliments from residents, from customers about our building department because Dave Goodlow has the mindset that our residents come first, our customers come first. And so that was a really long answer to a short question, but I just get so passionate about speaking on the importance of this in organizations. And it doesn't matter if you are a 200-employee organization running a city with a nearly $50 million annual budget or a 2-person operation. It applies to any group.
So as I was talking, we've gone through, our podcast is Aware, Prepared, and Willing. I'm very grateful for all this information. I'm much more aware about what a supervisor is. I thought a supervisor was the boss, but I didn't realize it was like a mayor in townships. So, we bring awareness. We talked a lot about how you've prepared your people, team, and you lead from the inspirational aspect. I can't say that enough because every time I hear my brother talk about it, it's how you're doing something. It's not you're just telling people what to do. A lot of the communities, they tell you what they're doing, and I can't tell you how many times you see these board meetings where they just sit up there and they tell the community this is the way it is, that is, and then they just tell them to go away, and they're just causing trouble. So I know that. So you've done those, and then we're talking about the next step of it is the willing. You have to make tough decisions. We talk about that as far as making the tough decisions. What are some tough decisions you've had to make recently for the future? Something that maybe we don't know about right now.
Yeah, I don't want to. It sounds crazy to say every single day, but truly every single day we're making decisions. And right now we're in our budget season. We're figuring out how we're going to spend those millions of dollars that we're entrusted with for the betterment of our community, and what are our priorities. And so inevitably we're letting people down daily. Everyone needs their road repaved. We don't have the funds to do that. So, I see my job as, the uniqueness of the job of Township Supervisor in the state of Michigan is not only do I chair the legislative body, so I kind of act as the mayor at those council meetings, but I do oversee and run the day-to-day business of our, 200-person operation. And that comes with lots of challenges. And I've learned that you have to let people down at the rate that they can handle because my job is essentially about letting people down. Everyone comes to us with a specific priority. And we might have anywhere from 6 people to 100 people in our council chambers on a board meeting or council meeting night. And I have to remind the board and myself often. And by the way, they never come to tell us we're doing a great job. The people that show up on Monday nights that are taking time away from their families and their dinners and their children are the ones that are upset with something we've done or something we might do. But we still have to act. We still have to make decisions, and we have to do that through the lens. And I remind my colleagues all the time that we represent 40,000 people, not just the 7 people that came to the podium tonight to yell at us. And sometimes we're going to make those 7 people really upset. And we do.
Yeah.
But the way we try to do it a little bit different is minus the Napoleon complex, that we don't know all, that their input matters. We are empathetic to their frustration about the gas station that's going to be built in their backyard. But also that gas station owner has personal property rights, and he has the right to develop his property. And so we try to do the best we can. And in doing that, in my opinion, we're providing the best service in local government. And the best compliment that I've ever received, and I do get it fairly often, is I don't agree with the way you voted. I don't agree with your decision on this, but I can't thank you enough for giving me an hour of your time to explain your rationale, to explain the reasoning behind it. And I will give people all the time in the world if they're willing to come sit face to face. That's the world we live in. And don't get me going on social media.
No, communication is key. As we kind of come towards the end of here, I got a couple questions that I really wanted to talk to you. Like I said, I know you are a supervisor, but you're a person first that has grown up with a really strong family. Give us an idea. Give me one rule that you live by.
Choose adventure and family first. It's my only tattoo.
You're selling your city again, because what's your city?
Our motto is "We're living as a vacation."
Okay,
and by the way, all of you listen all over the world. I'm all over the world to this amazing podcast, which I'm so honored to be a part of on so early on. We're living as a vacation. It's our identity. It's what we believe. It's, growing up in 100 years ago, this is where people from the city of Detroit came to vacation on the weekends, and we have stuck with that motto, and that's what we lead into. But I have one tattoo. It says "Choose Adventure." It's on my bicep. I'm not showing you, but that's the mantra that we grew up with in our house. We weren't rich, but we always took the opportunity to choose adventure, and my mom would add show up for others, show up for God. And that's how I live, and that's how my daughters live too.
Nice. One of the things we talked about was about failure. What's one thing that you failed from that you really learned from?
I do it still every day. The biggest thing I'm working on right now is speaking very directly. I'm a people pleaser, and that is really good in my role sometimes, but it's really bad a lot of times. And those of you who are out there know who you are. They're listening. I have been meeting with my directors today. Just met with your brother a little bit ago, and I've been telling each of them, I might say things that are a little more coarse to you. I'm not going to swear at you or do things like that, but I'm going to be direct with my words. I have a tendency to beat around the bush because I don't want to hurt feelings. And your podcast, honestly, has helped me understand a little bit about the importance of being direct. So I would say that's the biggest weakness that I've been working on for the last decade. I am convinced in 2026 I'm going to make some progress on it.
Yeah. And what gives you you said something about that people don't believe in government right now, the 57% stat. What gives you confidence that our future isn't doomed? And what sets your community apart for the future that every other community should do and follow your best practices?
When I got on the board in 2012, I looked around and it was a bunch of old white people. Now, listen, that might match the demographic of the community. I don't mean anything by color. I just mean we were a bunch of, and I was one of the youngest, if not the youngest. I got in trouble by saying I was the youngest on one of the boards I served on when I was the second youngest. But we have to empower the next generation. I've started a youth advisory council. I started in 2015. They took a little break in COVID and they're back running now, but empowering the next generation to make decisions for our community, real decisions. And they're doing it. One of the greatest traffic improvements in the history of our community was decided by somebody on my youth council who said, Mr. Barnett, I sit in this line of traffic every day to get to school. And why couldn't we add one more lane that turns right here without adding any, just paint? There's other areas in the community. She did her research that we can turn in 2 lanes to the right, and it would save me a minute, and I wouldn't be late to school every day. And I went to the state, I went to the county, and they agreed. And I give her credit to this day. Like, you don't have to be a mayor or a supervisor or a boss to make a decision that impacts your community. So this Youth Advisory Council, we have 12 students this year. They are excited, and we empower them. We give them the excitement and the opportunity to be part of the decisions we make, not just let the old white people make the decisions. And again, I don't mean anything besides that, saying we need to be more diverse in our opinions and properly reflect our whole community.
You know, I think we should end on that note. That it comes full circle to why we're here. You know, the Aware, Prepared, Willing podcast is here to educate the younger generation to be aware and to be, you know, good people in the community, and doing that. And, you know, empowering kids and students is amazing. Chris, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to sit on this podcast. Like I said, we're getting it started. You know, you're only number 5 in.
Love it.
So now you can go start yours next month.
Hey, listen, and I'm hoping that you will join me on mine once I figure out how to use all the controls. But I just want to thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Sincerely, my kids, I said, you need to listen to this podcast because it's real life stuff that unfortunately we've gotten away from. We've gotten soft on. And to any of the young people out there listening, if you don't like what's going on in your community, you can change. It's remarkable. To take my job, you have to be 18 years old and get 1 more vote than me. And I tell people all the time, I'm ready to hang it up when my ideas are stale and old. But right now, I'm still stealing lots of ideas from other friends. But thank you again for having me, and can't wait to see what you do with this.
All right. Thanks, Chris.